Hey y'all, welcome to our next installment of the Fireside Chat series. I'm gonna go ahead and start inviting Cody and Sifeng onto our chat right now, but in the meantime, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what we're talking about today. So, if you don't know Cody, Cody is a coach and also and has now moved on to other mainstream competitions and a coaching business as well. So we're gonna talk with him all about his experiences with that. Oh look, Cody, you're already online. That's awesome. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. My headphones are having an issue, but I got you now. I'm just inviting our co-host Sia Fung to hop on as well. So sometimes it takes them a second. I don't know if it's like a technology thing, but anyway, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm really excited about this month's chats. We're super excited about because we're not just talking to former athletes who have competed with us in recent years, but people who competed with us way back in the day and have like full-blown coaching careers now. So we're just excited to learn a lot more about y'all's journey with that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, CFO, where you at? Uh, hmm. I invited him. I don't know. Oh, it says unable to join. Oh shit. Let
Huh.
me see. We always have this issue either with them or with the guests. Like I don't know if it's Instagram Live or what, but see Feng, I know you're there. I accepted your invitation. I don't know why it's not letting you join. I see them in the audience right now, so.
Huh.
Mm, ugh, I don't know. I don't want to restart the live. Oh yeah, they're in the comments. Let me try again. Oh man. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to like manage it while also talking to you. I'm not good at multitasking. I have
Oh no.
ADHD. Um, so I apologize for that.
Would it help if I left and came back, or
No, I don't think so. See if are you? I'm accepting your invitation. There you go. We always have this problem, man.
Yeah, I don't know why, but can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yes, I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, you restart and then you open it again, and then it works again. It's like really weird.
Yeah, I have no idea. We always have this issue either with you or with the guests, where it just takes forever to get somebody on.
Yeah.
Um, But anyway, everybody's here now, so I'm very excited about getting started with this conversation today. So, um, for those of you who don't know, my name is Nat. I'm the Assistant Executive Director of the IATBP, and then we have my co-host here, Sia Fung, who is one of our most recent board members and ambassador to the IATBP. And today we're going to be interviewing Cody, who's not just a former competitor with us, but has moved on to a full-blown coaching career and competing with other organizations. So we're going to get into his journey and some tips that he has also from his perspective as both an athlete and a coach. Now, before we get into that, I sometimes forget, but we do have to plug that we have an event on November 18th. So we're an organization that creates bodybuilding and powerlifting competitions for trans and gender nonconforming individuals, if you didn't already know that, and you're new. So if you're interested in competing with us, you can go check out on our Instagram feed. There's a post right at the top on how to sign up for our competition this year on November 18th in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you don't want to compete with us, but you want to support us, you can become a member for just $49 a year. And that membership is essential in helping us put on those events every year. We literally can't do that without membership support. So if you're interested, that same post is going to tell you how to sign up to become a member, and you don't have to be an athlete to be a member. You just have to want to support this organization and what we do. Did I forget something, Sifong, or is that everything?
No, basically, like, you can be a competitor or even a spectator, right? So
Yeah.
you don't need to, if you do not want to sign up for a membership, but if you're in, around Atlanta, around Georgia, please do come, really to the competition to physically support our athletes, because I think every support is very, very important for any of our athletes, and even for us who are trying to, make this competition happen.
Yes.
So I think, whether you want to be a spectator, just come and enjoy the show, or you want to be, supporting some of your friends or athletes who will be competing, or if you're an athlete, please do really, really spread the word and let everyone know about our competition upcoming.
Yes, absolutely. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. I want to give a little background on Cody for those of you who didn't read the bio that we posted earlier. But Cody is not only a former IATBP competitor, but also a coach. You've been coaching for 6 years now, according to your bio. And it's not just bodybuilding athletes, right? It's everything from competition prep to just like general like fitness and nutrition, which is really cool that you have that like wide variety of coaching skills. And we're going to dig into a little bit your journey, but according to you, the reason you got into coaching was because you had some personal insecurities and discomfort growing up, but getting into sports and fitness and the coaches that were influential to you made you realize what you were capable of, and then you wanted to go and be that for other people as well, which is just incredible and inspirational. And then as far as bodybuilding, Cody got into bodybuilding specifically after competing with the IATBP. You took second place with us in 2016, and then I know from following you personally that you've competed in, I know the NPC at least once. I don't know if you've competed in any other competition since then. And also, for those of you who don't know, Cody is the guy who actually coached our last two Mass Division overall winners 2 years in a row. So he's quite a well-known name in the organization, because somebody will win and we'll be like, oh, who coached that? And then we'll find out it was Cody and we'll be like, oh, of course it was Cody. So anyway, sorry, I just like choked on my own. But anyway, so yeah, so that's a little bit about Cody. And now to kind of get into the details, the first question that we always ask people after introducing them is, we love to know kind of what got you into lifting and bodybuilding specifically, and what kind of did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, so I used to be, I guess what you would call more of the cardio bunny type.
Oh yeah.
I was a runner. I was running like 40 plus miles a week, so I had a way different physique. It was completely opposite essentially of what I'm doing now. But when I eventually I found CrossFit, which isn't usually the start of most people's bodybuilding careers, but it was the first thing that got me into like lifting, and really, even it was the first experience I had with, lifting anything really. So that served me well for a while. I loved the competitive side of it because, as I was younger, I played sports all growing up, soccer, basketball, all that stuff. And before sports was like my way of having a voice when I hardly talked. Like I always basically communicated through performance, and that was just how I did things. And coaches, they didn't care if I was quiet. They only cared how I performed. And so they kind of really pushed me in certain areas, but then it made me more confident. So, just to kind of go back, reverse a little bit into like, okay, that's why I want to be a coach, because I want to like provide people with that confidence. But yeah, sorry, back to how I got into bodybuilding. I actually had a histo, and I wasn't allowed to lift anything over 20 pounds. So I got a regular gym membership because, dumbbells come in all shapes and sizes. So I was like, cool, well, I'll lift under 20 pounds with dumbbells. And I just ended up doing bodybuilding routines. And then I was like, wait, I like this better. So that's where bodybuilding really kind of took off for me, because I just accidentally started doing bodybuilding type workouts and never went back to CrossFit. So yeah.
I always have that love-hate relation with CrossFit. So like it's so interesting, because I also have a very similar, like Nat would know, I also have a very similar kind of sports journey as you. Like I started with marathon. I started with cross country running, and then I did marathon running. And I was this skinny person, and I was like, and I saw my coach who was 90 pounds. Like he was one of the top, like, Asian runners, marathon runners. And I saw him, and he's 5'7", and then he's only 90 pounds. And I was like, okay, I don't really want to look like him. But I know if I have to run really, really well in marathon, you have to maintain a certain weight cap. You can't be too heavy, because you will run against the wind, right? So yeah, and then I do a few other sports, and then I came to bodybuilding. So I can see that difference. And I did CrossFit in the middle, for a while, but I don't know. Like my love-hate relation with CrossFit is that I love it because there's so many variety. You never get bored. But at the same time, just that is something that I just feel doesn't click with it. Yeah. So what do you think with CrossFit? What makes you really change, and give up CrossFit altogether?
Yeah. Like, what did you like better about bodybuilding?
Well, honestly, the first thing was that I'm an introvert, so like the group style stuff isn't really my jam, but it feels a competitive void. But then bodybuilding gives you this competitive piece that was missing, but then you can work out on your own, and that's like cool. But also, I didn't like how it was too varied. You like couldn't really you hit like plateaus pretty quickly. You gain some muscle, make some progress, but then you just kind of stop because the workouts were just kind of sporadic. It was just like they were throwing workouts up that day. We're like, how can we make people feel like they did something today? Wet their ass off. And like it just was
like
too sporadic.
the wads and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want some structure. Like I want progression and a smart style of training.
That's very interesting. I think the reason that I decided I would not play CrossFit anymore is that, I love in the CrossFit gym that I went to, they have very structured training. So usually half of the training is more weightlifting kind of stuff, and half of it is really all these intense cardio, like you do what is that? Circuit trainings, like a few 4 to 5 stuff all at the same time. No, all at one set. Right, and then they time you. You have to finish it either, there are different ways of playing it, but one of the ways is like you have to finish, under 10 minutes or stuff like that. And what really caught me was burp pit. I really can't do that thing. Like I'm dying. And then you have to burp. One of our training is that you have to burp it over a bar as well. So you do once on one side, and then you have to jump over that barbell, and then you have to do it again. I was like, I'm dying. And I think that was the major reason that I actually quit CrossFit. I was like, I cannot. My heartbeat is like 230. I'm going to die from that. But I also agree with you, like bodybuilding CrossFit, when you compete, is also a very individual, right, a time sport. But I think bodybuilding, one of the very attractive thing is that, I think there's an aesthetic about it, right? It's not just about just blindly gain muscle and, get bigger, right? But then you have to get bigger in the right places, so-called, right? So that, you can, attune to what the judges want in terms of there's a very particular aesthetic about what a good physique look like in bodybuilding. And I think you definitely capture that, right? Because you can be able to train, other athletes, to get to what the judges want, right, in a physique. So yeah, I think that was something that really, really attracts me, is the kind of aesthetics in bodybuilding. And it's not that you're bigger, you're better, because for me as a smaller guy, as a smaller person, I do feel sometimes, I can get wider, but definitely I cannot get taller. So, there's always a kind of restriction, so-called, right? But I think one good thing about bodybuilding, unlike basketball or other games, right, where height is really something important. I think bodybuilding, actually, you can see short guys with really good physique and tall guys with really aesthetic physique as well. So I think the variety of it is what really attracts me.
Yeah, for sure. Same.
Yeah. So getting back to that kind of like journey with bodybuilding, how did your like personal transition journey kind of coincide with fitness? Because some people it's kind of like, oh, they're two separate things, but some people really they find themselves and realize, you know, that they're trans like through their sports experience, or they have positive or negative correlating experiences between the two.
Yeah, I think whether, you know, even before I was aware of it, I think I always used sports and fitness to kind of like, you know, help treat my, there's like self-treatment of dysphoria.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of just this one thing that you could grasp and have control over because, you know, going through the wrong puberty, you're just kind of like, I have control over nothing, man.
Yeah.
So you do what you can, what you do have control over. So, you know, that's kind of where fitness came into play, and it, you know, it helped a little bit. You know, it wasn't until medical transition where I felt like so much better, but it was a little tiny piece that even before I was able to medically transition, it helped kind of alleviate some things a little bit.
Do you mind telling us, like, when did you start really, you know, serious bodybuilding training, and when did you start medical transition?
Yeah, so medically, I transitioned in, man, so
The years fly by, huh?
yeah, I think it was like 2014, and then I'm still doing CrossFit up until about 2015, and then I competed in 2016. But yeah, so like I guess that would be like considered the first time I started training bodybuilding seriously was in 2016. But I think right after that I had phalloplasty, so all the way up until 2020, I just had breaks of complications, surgeries, recoveries, surgery recoveries. So I did compete in 2020, but it was kind of one of those things where it's like I knew I lacked size, but I just needed to do it. I just was like, it's been forever. I mentally want to do it. So I did it, but I'm glad I did because I did my first NPC show, and then I did summer shredding in Houston, if anyone's familiar with Christian Guzman and all that. So, it just, you know, reignited a fire in me, and it was kind of like, I'm just going to be basically as close to perfect from here on out.
Well, there you go. Shit. I mean, your physique has come a long way for sure. Like, I saw the pictures from 2016, and I follow you on Instagram now, and I'm like, it's very impressive, the transition. So, yeah. So clearly, you're good at you're good at training, and you're good at your job. But so you said you did the IATBP in 2016, and that was the first time you kind of like started, you know, quote unquote training seriously. What got you to kind of want to take that step into competing? Like, what got you wanting to compete? Because you said you weren't, you were started training seriously, but it sounds like it wasn't super like on point, but you still wanted to go and do that competition thing.
Yeah, right. And of course, to add on that, right? How do you find us, right?
Yeah, how did you find us, first of all?
I think maybe through FTM magazine, like back in the day. I just remember Sean.
Yeah,
every year.
That's a throwback, FTM magazine.
Yeah, like, oh, we forgot that existed, but yeah, I found it. I think it was just Sean, you know, like Sean wins again, and so like, you know, I was just, I wanted to compete against him, but obviously I knew I wasn't gonna win. But I just wanted to be like, I'll measure myself up with him and see how far I had to go. He ended up being a judge instead, but it was like the challenge. I really like a challenge, and I'm a really competitive person, and ever since, you know, not having sports, you know, once you graduate and you're like, okay, so CrossFit was a good little competition void filler, but I wanted more. And I really love bodybuilding, you know, the workouts. So I was like, cool, let's do this. Let's give this a shot, because I love a challenge and I love competition. So that was my ultimate, you know, deciding factor.
And how I knew it was quite a long time ago back to 2016, but you know, how was your experience with competing with us? Is it the first time that you compete in a like trans, you know, trans only competition?
Yeah, yeah. So overall, like it was great. I mean, I was super nervous. I didn't know anybody, but everyone was so nice backstage, and like I didn't feel alone or anything like that. I mean, I flew over there alone, but like once I was there, and yeah, everyone just was really nice. I think it, you know, it was probably the best first experience I could have had. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, I'm very grateful to hear from athletes here, who had first person experience, like to know that, this is actually a really good experience for them, for competing, especially, as it was the first time you compete in the bodybuilding, right? And so, having IATBP as a platform, even though it might not be super, super competitive, like compared to mainstream competitions, right? I think that would be a really good platform and a safe space, to really try it out, and see, whether you really like it, right? Whether you like the sport and, whether you want to continue to on your journey as a bodybuilder, right? And so I think my follow-up question definitely is something related to like, after competing with us, what made you decide that, okay, I need to try and you did NPC, right?
Right.
So what makes you decide that, okay, I need to try an NPC competition instead of just, coming to, another round of IATBP to try to claim that victory.
Yeah.
And how was that experience differ, in NPC, and how that differ from, competing with us?
And we don't take your answer personally, by the way. If you, because lots of people do that. They'll come
Yeah.
compete with us and then they'll go to the NPC or whatever. So we're just like asking out of genuine curiosity.
No, yeah. I mean, honestly, so one of the biggest factors is actually that I have a bum knee. And so I was like kind of forced to go into the men's physique side of things. I had surgery on my knee in 2019. It's hasn't been the same, never will be. So I'm essentially stuck in men's physique. But so that was kind of like number one reason. Number two, I wanted to see where I stood up against, you know, this guys, and I wanted the experience. It was kind of one of those things. I definitely want to do an NPC show. Want to check that off the list. And yeah, it was different, but I wouldn't say like the summer shredding show. I feel like was actually pretty similar to doing, you know, like your guys' show, because
Right.
the camaraderie, people were just a lot more friendly, nice. They talked to each other. There was a lot. It was a different vibe. NPC, it's a lot more quiet. People like in the back, you know, pump up room. No one was talking. Like everyone's like looking around. I feel like kind of just looking at each other, you know, level, like seeing like where do I stand here. So it was kind of its own. It wasn't like intimidating. People were nice. It was just more of a serious, focused vibe. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean I asked you that because I didn't compete in NPC, but I compete in like pro qualifiers, by the IFBB. So and of course I didn't have like real experience in competing in the IATBP, but I've been there for a few years, so I get a sense of how the competition is organized in IATBP versus like in shows like NPC or these like IFBB pro qualifier. And I think one thing that sometimes, our trans and non-binary athletes, they get really nervous about competing in mainstream shows is that they are afraid that they feel intimidated because it's a much bigger show. A lot of times you are, compete against cis men, right? Or I mean, mostly cis men, right? But I would have to say, a lot of times, even shows that are really, really big, like, NPCI, IFBB Pro qualifiers, I think at the backstage, you often find, kindness from other people. I remember one time when the time that I got my, I won and get my pro card that year, right after I finished my competition, I was back to the backstage and, I was stuffing chocolate in my mouth. I just say nothing for 2 minutes. I was like stuffing. And then, someone next to me saw me and she was like, oh, why are you like, keep on eating? I was like, oh, I just won. And of course, like she congratulated me. And then she pulled out her own white chocolate. package, which because she hasn't competed yet. So this is a brand new white chocolate, and then she gave the whole pack to me. I was like, and it was cold, like it was, she put it in the ice too. So it's like, just keep eating, and then she just leave me alone and have me eat for like a few minutes without stopping and not talking at all. And so I think, those are those little moments where you can also experience in mainstream competition. I feel like a lot of people are get really intimidated by big competition, big shows, and feeling, and feel that, it's very hard. People are gonna be cold. People are not gonna talk to you. No one. But I feel like, that's what, the essence of sport is, right? Sometimes it's really about being able to connect, using sport itself to connect with other people. And I think those moments are always really cherished, because you don't often see in professional shows. But you also, but at the same time, sometimes you will also get really good, you will find really good friendship or connections just by talking to a random person in the show. So I think, that is, what is great about bodybuilding shows itself. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, thanks also for your experience, Theophone, because I know you guys both compete in NPC and IFBB, so I love hearing the sort of lived experiences of mainstream shows, because I don't have that. But so you've also been not just an athlete, but you've been a coach for 6 years, I think you said. So 6 years, that's like what, it's 2023, so that's like since 2017-ish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means that you started coaching like right around or right after competing with the IATBP. So can you tell us about that? Because I was under the impression, just from trying to piece together Instagram stories, that you started coaching around the time you competed with the NPC. So I clearly got that wrong. So what was the actual journey like, being like, oh, I'd like to help people with this as well?
Yeah. So I was actually working on my certification when I was competing. So I was already,
Oh, bet.
it was in the works. I knew I wanted to be a coach.
Oh,
And
cool.
but like I went to school previously for fitness stuff and nutrition. So I've always been interested in nutrition and fitness. So I knew in some capacity that's the direction I wanted to go. I got lost, went to culinary school for a while, but that was just still the way I went to culinary school was because I was sitting in a nutrition class, and on the wall there was like careers in nutrition, and like culinary was on the wall. I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. It wasn't a great idea, but I so went back to the roots, back to fitness and nutrition. I can still incorporate the cooking, which is great. Yeah, so I already knew my path at that point. I was just building that up, making sure I was studying and passing my certification. So I ended up getting my certification, yeah, I think either 2017, late, like the very end of 2017, I think. Yeah.
And so what makes
I think oh, sorry. Do you want to go first, Steve?
No, I mean, just follow up, and then what makes you, after you get the certificate, what makes you, decide that, okay, then I think I am, sometimes we would question it, whether I'm good enough to be a coach, right? And, does that experience as a competitor, in 2016 actually help you with that, to build up that confidence? Like, okay, at least I know how an athlete experience, and then I would be confident to, to coach athletes and, of course, non-athletes as well. Does that help, with competing, with IATBP and, actually just what in general, like, how do you get your first clients?
Yeah. So, I think it definitely helps if you compete yourself. I mean, I feel like it should be a requirement. If you're not going to know what your athlete is going through, and there's a lot that you're going through when you're prepping, mentally, emotionally, physically. It's really good to know exactly what they're going through. I think I used myself as an experiment, essentially. So prepping myself through the 2016 show, I was collecting all the data. I was seeing what worked, what didn't. I was trying to do all the studying I could on my own. I could not afford a prep coach, so it was kind of on me. And that was great. And it wasn't until 2020 where I was actually able to like hire a coach. And that's always great because they become your mentor in a sense. And that's where I learned more about coaching athletes. So I didn't coach anyone until, after the 2020. So I was coaching general population pre 2020, but it wasn't until after 2020 I started coaching some bodybuilding clients, and then competed with you guys. But I've been nerding out on it ever since I competed in 2016. So like, yeah, it's really fun to be able to put it into action and put it into play for athletes who want to compete.
And
Yeah.
when you were, oh, sorry, Sue.
No,
We're both just so excited to ask you questions. We both have so many questions. I was gonna ask, like, during that process of like, okay, I got my certification, now I'm starting to coach Gen Pop. Okay, now I'm gonna take on like professional, like, shows, like competitors. What was kind of the biggest challenges that you were facing as a coach along the way? Like, was it getting clients? Was it like just the education piece, or like what for you, what were the biggest challenges going from that transition of, oh, I just like in the gym lifting and I compete sometimes, to like now I have to take this responsibility of this person's goals into my hands?
Yeah. It's I don't know, it was kind of a process to get clients. I had been doing my own for a bit. So, it wasn't intentional, but it was almost like this advertising kind of thing. So I was already kind of like on people's minds of like, oh, they're into fitness, and oh, okay, now they have coaching, cool. But I did initially coach people for free, just to, get my feet wet, make sure, people, had some trust in me, that sort of thing. So I started coaching people for free, then slowly put a fee on it, but kept it pretty low. But I think the hardest part was, you always feel like this imposter syndrome, right? Like, do I deserve to be paid X amount? Do I deserve XYZ? Like, so it's kind of like this, there's a big time frame of building your confidence as a coach. And it's a journey just like everything else. But yeah, I think I found my spot with that.
Yeah, I think my question is even more general. Like, I have also like I also kind of, I won't say I transitioned to athlete to coach, but I'm always being athlete and coach kind of at the same time. But like, what you just told us kind of reminds me of like, I felt very nervous when I first get a student who is competing. Like before I was doing more like, now I'm more doing only on posing. But before, it's more general, I do prep and stuff like that. And I remember I get really, really nervous when I first had someone who is really competing, because I feel like, general population who are just for life, we call it lifestyle training, right? Just lifestyle. It's kind of easy to maintain as long as they, what you do is more like, for me, it's like parenting a lot sometimes, make sure, please do this,
That's a good
please
way of
don't,
putting it.
please don't cheat, please, that kind of, and then make sure they just work out at the gym, with your coaching, right? But, prepping an athlete is an entirely different, I think it's an entirely different challenge, because, for me, I get more nervous as a coach than an athlete myself. Like, when I compete, I always have a coach. And whether the coach is good or not, I have bad coaches before, but for even so, like, you kind of get more at ease, because there is someone who will be responsible for whatever you and you just follow instruction basically, right? And I always tell my students who are having a coach with them, and I was like, don't worry about your food, just follow all the instructions, and if it doesn't work, you can blame your coach. Right? I mean, that's what coaches are for. And so I feel more like at ease in comparison when I have to prep someone, because, I feel like now I am responsible for this person's, presence on stage, their condition, their muscle mass, whatever, right? How they look on stage, right? So, I mean, that was a really, really mental challenge for me as well. So but eventually I also feel I like that challenge more. So, I kind of transitioned from just helping a mixture of people to, deciding that I would just work with like competitors, because I have competed before. And so I have that experience of going through, as you said, not just the physical transformation, but also the mental one. Right. So mentally, how you go through a competition, you have that experience. You'll be able to, sometimes coach them, sometimes guide them, sometimes mentor them, and make sure they are not too nervous on their own. Or, some people, when they get nervous, they forget everything on stage and stuff like that. So for you, what's the difference? Which do you like more? Do you like to coach like Gen Pop more, or do you like coaching, competing athletes more?
Man, it's hard because I actually like both of them. I think they're different.
Mm,
Gen Pop, you do get that opportunity to help people build foundations, which is great. And then
mm,
sometimes they become bodybuilding clients. Um,
mm,
so it's like to get to build that foundation with people is sometimes cool, because you don't have to like take away bad habits from them. You're like, I built those foundations, so you're in a
mm,
good spot. And then with bodybuilders, I feel like, it's definitely more nerve-wracking, but it's so exciting because you get to see like every piece of your knowledge play out. Because, with Gen Pop, sometimes you gotta create a maze of like, okay, they may go this way, even though I want them to go this way. So we're gonna have to pivot and like do XYZ because they fell off track here, haven't heard from for 3 weeks. I don't know what's happening, like. So when it comes to bodybuilders, and you have those people who are like, I'm gonna follow everything you say, just get me ready. And you're like, cool, let's do this. And you get to see your programming play out. And it's like, technically, they're the bodybuilders, they're the sculptors, but you have a hand in like sculpting their physique. And there's an art about that I really enjoy, because there is this like, yeah, they did the work, but I had a little piece of, how their physique is presented today.
Yeah.
So just have it, you get to kind of sculpt with them. So that's what I really enjoy. And I love seeing people through doing something that is so challenging that maybe they didn't think they were capable of, because it just gives you this confidence boost that you just never forget. It's an experience they will never forget. They can keep it forever. So just being part of that is what I love the most.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I'm very frank, and I would say, I get bored, helping Gen Pop people sometimes, because, I don't know, I love challenges. I love seeing, people, really, transform in, a few months, following your guidance. Yeah, and I mean, eventually, of course, I don't do I mostly don't do nutrition and training. I mean, I still do some training, but nutrition and training for prep. I realized there's so many coaches already doing that. And so I was like, I need to find my niche, something that I am good at and something that I really enjoy as well. So I switched to posing and stuff and just helping with competitors. So I think that was a different, entirely different switch, because it's from, a mixture. Most of us have like mixture of clients, right? So, usually it's, I mean, I have a lot of like bodybuilder coaches who only love, coaching lifestyle people, because they were like, no pressure, it's always really fun, and, it's always good to see them improve a little bit, and it's already good enough. But if you're coaching someone who's competing, you need to see that, in like a few months, you need to see that really changes and being able to put them on stage. And there's so many like uncertainties, right? I mean, and you definitely know, like for people who compete, it's go back and forth. They might be thinking about competing today, and then tomorrow they suddenly change the idea, or they suddenly get nerve-wracked, and they say, okay, I don't know, I don't think I'm good enough, blah, blah, blah. And then you have to put them on track. Or sometimes they just cheat, like don't eat, the right way, that kind of stuff, there's a lot more uncertainties, coaching, competitors, right? Coaching athletes, And I think you did an amazing job by bringing in, by bringing in some of the best physiques that we have in our competition. So, what's the secret? What's your secret? Tell us.
It's true. Your athletes do set a bit of a standard at our competitions now. We're just kind of like, okay, we see what it is.
Well,
so what's your secret in coaching? Like, especially, the two athletes that actually won the overalls, right? In the past 2 years.
I mean, I know that, one of the biggest things that you guys like to say is it's a great competition to do to see if you like this sport, and then to move on to other more mainstream things. But honestly, my goal is to make this more mainstream and have people compete to the best of their ability, no matter what competition it is. So basically, I always say, like, pretend this is an NPC show. Like, this is an NPC show. We're not sitting on stage if you're not ready, that sort of thing. Like, so that's kind of my way about it, and my way about it.
That
is,
makes
like,
sense, because
your
guys are fucking shredded, dude.
Yeah,
I'm just saying they are. They're all. That's part of why they win. I mean, they're just fucking shredded, So
I do value conditioning a lot, and so it's like I want people that work under me to raise the bar when they compete. That's the goal. Like, I want this competition to be like up here with the NBC. It shouldn't be, oh, this is just a trans competition. Like, I don't want that. Like, no, this is a bodybuilding competition. You're gonna give your best effort because that's what required. That is what is required of you to step on a bodybuilding stage.
I love that, and I don't know if Sifan would agree with me, but I think that's also kind of our eventual goal as well. I think we're kind of okay with being what we are right now. Like, we're not gonna like hate on what we are if we're helping trans people get into the sport of bodybuilding by being that sort of jumping off platform right now, then we're totally happy to be that. But we do hope one day that we can be like a really serious competitive organization where like we have a standard that is similar to the NPC, and it just happens to cater to trans and gender non-conforming athletes. So I love that you as a coach, you're not even involved with us in any way, but you bring athletes to our stage, and you kind of do your part of also participating in that long-term mission. And that means a lot to us, for sure.
Well, that's cool, because I just want to see, like, y'all, like, blow up, just have it be bigger and bigger every year, but also like standards raising every year, because also in my mind, I feel like trans people kind of underestimate themselves, or think that they can't do something because they're trans, or like they're like, I can't do bodybuilding, I'm trans, or it doesn't matter because it's a trans comp. It's like, no, you're giving your best trans self.
I mean, that's entirely true. Like, we have been trying to think about how we can kind of as an organization also transition from just a safe space, and of course safe space and a platform is very, very important, very central to our mission and to our to our philosophy, so to say. Philosophy. Sorry, I was like reading too much this of philosophy in my mind. But I think that adhere to our mission, right, to provide a safe space for trans and non-binary athletes to be able to compete and be themselves, right? But at the same time, we have been also reevaluating, how we can make the competition itself more competitive, so that great athletes like yourself, or the ones that you have coached, right, would actually want to come back, even though they are thinking about competing in mainstream competition, right? So I think and we of course like rely a lot on coaches like yourself to bring us more athletes, because like we can encourage people to come in, but without coaches who actually train athletes, and without athletes themselves thinking that I can actually come in and join, it's really hard to get a competition going. So, thank you so much. We just want to really express our gratitude, in bringing really high quality athletes to our show. And I think, hopefully you're bringing some to us this year, but, but if so, like, still tell us some of your, maybe not secret, but, do you have any like coaching tips, for those who might be thinking about competing in November with us in the bodybuilding show, can you share, a few tips with us for our upcoming athletes?
Yeah, secret tips for people without coaches who like maybe they need some help and guidance.
Yeah. So for all you without coaches, I would say if you can
We
get,
do have a lot of athletes that don't have coaches come in and compete,
Yeah.
so it's not
yeah.
uncommon.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, I was one of those, so like I get
Yeah.
it. Um, but I would say, definitely get one if you can. Reach out to me. I will 100% like happy to. If money is an issue, let's work something out. I am very passionate about getting people to compete, especially in your competition. So that is something like reach out, we'll work it out. But I would also say, as a coach, my secret personally is just that like I don't let you let off the gas. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. So that's always been my motto. That's baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And always what I'm going to do. So if someone's not ready, I will tell them. If someone's not following the plan, I will tell them. I can tell. So it's like, I'm not, an asshole. I'm just going to tell you what you need to hear. That's baseline. And then for, more competitors out there, if you don't have a coach, competitors in general, if you haven't started dieting, you're already behind.
Yeah.
Start dieting yesterday. We about how many weeks? 7, 8, 9?
Yeah. November 18th, so that's like it's about 2 months, about 8 weeks away.
Weeks, yeah.
Pretty much.
So if you haven't started dieting, chances are it's already too late unless you're eating to begin with. So I think that's one of the big things that I've seen in the past regarding competition, people getting on stage not in condition, and I think that conditioning is a huge part of it, and that's the part that is really really hard. You're gonna grind yourself into the ground getting to stage lean, but it's necessary, unfortunately. So if you're not dieting, getting conditioned, hurt that immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, as a judge myself last year, condition wise, condition is one of the important criteria. But of course, we're also looking for, size, symmetry, that kind of stuff, your performance on stage. I think we have a pretty balanced way of judging criteria. But I do agree, right? If you only have, some size and shape, but you are not coming in conditioned,
Yeah.
it really hurts your physique and your placing. So I think, definitely what your advice is very on point for our athletes, and I hope upcoming, who are listening to us, who are, already joined us as a competitor or thinking about joining us, make sure you also take care of your conditioning and of your overall physique. And thank you so much for the tips. And I think, going back to, from coaching, going back to being an athlete yourself, do you have any plans to compete in the future? Not necessarily with us, but, in other mainstream shows. And if so, do you have it planned out, or are you, off, are you going off for a while, before you compete again?
I think Cody's in prep right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell us more about it.
I have competition November 11th, so it's an NPC show.
Oh.
So that will be my next competition, and then kind of just go from there, see how I do, see how that goes. But yeah, November 11th will be the next one.
I have a question actually in regards to that. Like you're in the process of competing right now, so I'm curious because I did martial arts for like 8 years, and I remember the first 2.5 years I was just kind of like working my way up, and I was like I was considered okay, and then I started becoming an instructor, and it was like the ramp just went up like this. I'm like I got so much better in the first year of in being an instructor as an athlete myself versus the first 2.5 years of like building up that experience. And I think that was the first time I learned that teaching people makes you a better competitor yourself. So I'm curious, like in what ways, if I don't know if you've seen that, did coaching other people actually make you a better athlete and competitor? Because I've seen your pictures of your physique, and it feels like the last couple of years you just fucking like did this. So
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm just trying to mirror what I would like my clients to do. So in that sense, it's made me, like better athlete kind of thing. It's just like I, you know, I know what my coach wanted for me, and like basically from experience with working with my clients, I know like what my coach is looking for, and that's basically just like shut up and do the work. Don't,
yeah.
no more, no less, do what I say, and you'll be okay. And so that's just as an athlete, that's what I do.
I think that's a great question, and it also reminds me of like how So right now, these 2 years, I switched to do mostly on posing, right, and helping people with their posing. And then I think because I always thought I'm not myself. When I do posing, I don't have that flow. I'm more on a shorter side, and more bulky side. And I always feel like I don't have that flow, but I know how to coach people with flow. But I think in that process, it also makes me more aware of how I transition myself in all my own poses. Even though like I mostly coach, men who might be different because I compete in the women's. So I think that actually helps. In terms of how I be more aware of my own physique and my own flow as well. And so I think that's very interesting. Into thinking about how coaching itself could actually go hand in hand with you being an athlete.
It's very important to me. Like, I'm always curious about instructors, teachers, coaches who also are athletes, because I saw that directly at the Taekwondo studio. Like, we'd have really good students who would get really good really quickly. And then the second they became an instructor, like, they would like, be teaching people and be like, oh no, your foot's supposed to go there actually. And then they'd be like, yeah, I don't do that, like when I'm doing whatever, and then they would fix it. And so like having to pay attention to other people and to get them to where you want them to go, you start to see the things that you're kind of like lacking and falling back on. And then you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense for me to ask them that of them and then me not do it myself. And it just kind of like, it accelerates, I think, your growth as an athlete when you're forced to teach people. So I had to ask, because you're the first person we've had who's competed with us who's also a coach now. So I needed to ask that question.
Yeah, I think it also gives you this, when you're also a coach, you have this tendency to want to like coach yourself. So I think that it kind of opened my eyes to that. Like sometimes I'll be like, well, I wouldn't have done it that way. But you have to like check yourself and just be like, it doesn't matter, you're not coaching yourself, that's why you hired someone.
Yeah.
So a lot of people out there who have a tendency to coach themselves, even with a coach, and it's like, if that's you, stop that. It's best to not have, too many cooks in the kitchen, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting, because for me, it's the opposite. Because I am a coach right now, I know the importance of having a coach that kind of, to kind of, mitigate some of the nervousness that I might experience. And because you see your physique so much in a day, right? That you can't always find things to critique yourself. So you become too self-critical. So for me, because I'm a coach, I would prefer having a coach for myself. And I feel like, because I've realized the importance of having to elevate that kind of, to that kind of burden onto someone else.
Yeah.
And I just need to follow the instruction, and then I do whatever, the coach told me to do, and then I will just be fine. And I think that was, kind of opposite, from your experience. Like, I'm not going to coach myself.
Well,
I don't think I can do that.
I kind of get what Cody's saying, actually, because I'm the same way, Sia Fung. And so I got a coach because I was like, I felt like I was spinning my wheels and I needed just like support and guidance. Like I needed someone to be thinking about all this shit that I was thinking about all the time and deal with it for me so that I would just execute. But what ended up happening is exactly what Cody says, where like every week they'll like update my spreadsheet and I'll be like, oh, I don't like that, you know. I'll be like, oh no, that's like too heavy, or like, why are we increasing my calories this week? Like that doesn't make any sense. And so I find myself like pushing back against this person that I'm paying money to help me.
Yeah.
So I get it. Oh, but anyway, sorry, that was a little tangent there.
No,
Oh,
I mean, yes, I think that's always that. I mean, even yeah. So I feel like, whenever you find a coach, it's very important to find someone that you think you can trust them. Like I had a coach. I mean, I have the same coach for a few years, and at the beginning, I didn't trust him. Like, I still follow my own way,
yeah.
especially on my subs. I feel like, why are you asking me to take so few steps? I feel like I need to take a lot, and I need to take a
I
lot.
need to shell out hundreds of dollars on powder, don't you know? Like
Yeah, stuff like that, right? No, I need to, I need to eat more. Why are you putting me so little calories and stuff like that? So I didn't follow, entirely. I sometimes change it myself for the first 2 years. And then eventually I realized that, that was
that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, but also I only compete once a year, so basically it's just 2 preps. And then I slowly realized the beauty of having a coach is to really, trust them and have them do their thing. Because once you interfere what they are doing, they cannot really accurately, adjust, adjust whatever that is, right, to fit your situation in your physique. Because, you're giving them the confusing stuff like messages, right? Sometimes you follow that plan, sometimes you don't. And then eventually they don't really know what really works for you and for your body. So, I learned that a hard way. I spent a lot of time, really trying to trust the coach that I never really, know him beforehand. Right. And I think a lot of times when you find an online coach, you only know the person from the Instagram and stuff like that. Right. So, and, they're successful, athlete, but, everyone just posts the best things online. Right. And so, to gain that trust, I think is so important, because once I gained that trust from the coach, I realized that, I just, I mean, I just need to do the thing that he told me, and that's it. And good or bad, it's up to him. It's not me. But I did all the things that I can, and so I don't need to worry about how I going to turn up. And in that, I will leave that for him because I pay him for that, right?
Yeah.
And then so I think I learned it the hard way. But I think trusting a coach, and then you can see that exactly from the athletes that you coached. Because they definitely trust you, and let you do your thing, right? And that's why they all get good results from that. And I think that's very important, being able, even for those who are trying to find a coach, you have to find someone that you think you can trust them and really trust them, and let them do their thing. And I think that's really, really my tips of having a coach. Because I see that a lot of times in my, not really my athletes, my posing athletes who are having a coach, right? A lot of times they go back and forth. They will ask me for a second opinion for the trainings that they do, the nutrition that they do. I was like, trust your coach. I'm not going to interfere with what your coach tells you, right? But, this is what I see, that would, you might want to switch up some of the things. But this is really up to you and your communication with your coach. Sometimes we need to remember that as an athlete. We tend to forget that you pay them, so and so make the full use of what you pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for coming to Sue Feng's TED Talk about trusting your coach.
No, perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's all the questions that we personally have that we wanted to ask, and also we're kind of like butting up against time. So we did have one person in the audience that asked a question. It pertains nothing to anything that we've talked about at all, but I think I already know what we're all going to say in response, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I don't know if other people have that question. We had somebody ask how much it costs for like overall medical transition, basically. Not even like related to bodybuilding, but we're all trans here, so I'm sure we all have our experiences with that. And my answer, that I don't know if you guys will echo, is it's so variable that there's not an answer. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. So I don't know, like it is, yeah, I asked the question just because I want to acknowledge the person who asked the question. But you can ask any trans person that there's no, like, it depends so much on where you live and what kind of procedures you want and what kind of your hormone regimen and what your insurance is. I mean, it's just not even, there's just no answer to that question. So thank you for asking, but yeah, that's something you have to figure out. Unfortunately, on your own, doing your research and for your specific situation. So, but for those of you who are interested in a coach, Cody did say that if cost is an issue, that he would be willing to help. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else, Yufeng, or is that everything you wanted to ask?
Talking about medical transition.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know, I don't know if you want to share with us, but how was that experience with, like, because you spent a few years really, you know, healing and recovering from the phalloplasty surgery. So, were there hard times that you experienced? And, you know, especially I imagine, like, you know, with the surgery coming in and out, you know, you have to, you know, fix something and this and that, you know, it kind of prevents you to really train really, you know, hard and stuff like that. So were there any like low moments, and how do you deal with those low moments that you might, because as a bodybuilder myself, if I cannot train for a month or so, I was like, you know, I cannot, I'm gonna get crazy. So how do you deal with those urges to train, but really physically you are trying to heal and cannot train? And what are your methods?
Yeah, that's a good question because that's a lot, you know, trans people uniquely often have back-to-back procedures for transition. So that's a great question.
Yeah. The phalloplasty one was definitely the roughest just because there's so many parts to it, so many stages, and then adding complications on top of it. It felt like at least every 2, 3 months I was having some type of surgery. So basically I handled it, you know, stage one, I couldn't work out for I think it was about 8 weeks. I finally was able to kind of slowly get back into the gym. I didn't have like 4 range of motion with my hand quite yet, so it was slowly. But you have to kind of find your own new definition of training or new, like, this is my training. So for a while, my training was physical therapy. I was going to do the best I could in physical therapy, just to get one step closer to being back to where I was. So you have to focus on just in the way with training, you always have goals that you're striving for. Same way with recovery, you have these goals that you still are striving for. And I feel like as long as you have something to strive towards, then you're going to be okay. Is it fun still? No. Does it suck? Yes. But it's still going to keep moving you forward. So just focusing on that, like you are still moving forward, I think is going to be the biggest key. So even when there's setbacks, another surgery, another recovery, as soon as I was able to do absolutely anything, I would do it. Even if it was just walking, or even if it was like doing just legs because my arm was messed up, then I would do that. If, you know, I couldn't do legs, then I would do upper body. So it's always just about doing what you can and redefining what training is for you in that moment, and just know that it's not always going to look that way. It's just temporary. But
So how long does it take for you to fully recover from the stages? How many, I mean, I'm very naive asking that, but how many stages that you actually go through, and how long does that take for you to completely heal?
yeah, so it depends on the surgeon. Like sometimes there's multiple, like four stages. Sometimes there's 2 stages, 3 stages, depending on like what you want to do the surgery. So I've technically had 2 stages. There's a total of 3, but the third is like an implant, right? And that one I have not gone through yet because with bodybuilding, I just don't think it would be ideal for me. And I just don't want another surgery. So the first stage was the hardest because it was the most that was going on. So, you know, they take the skin graft, they form the phallus, and like you are in intensive care for 5 days. So it's pretty intense. You don't walk until the fifth day, or you don't even walk. You just get up to sit in a chair. But otherwise, you are stuck in bed. You can't even get up. Nothing. So that was a really intense stage. After that, that probably made any other complication surgery seem like a breeze, just in comparison. So yeah, but sometimes there's doctors that don't do that first stage that's really intense. They break that up into two different stages. Um, I don't know which I would have preferred. I did the one full big stage because I didn't have time to do two stages to break it up because I had to work. And so that was more convenient time-wise for me, but it was definitely a lot at once. So if you have the time to break it up, I'd probably encourage that so it's not so hard on you. But yeah, so it could be one stage, it could be four stages. It really depends on your preference and your surgeon.
So you said the first stage takes you around 8 weeks, right? Before you can start doing a physical therapy or going to the gym.
I'm going to the gym. I started physical therapy for like my arm pretty quickly afterwards. You got so much going on, like, so there's the vaginectomy, there's the arm thing, you've got like a skin graft from your leg, you've got your phallus that's still stitched up and healing. So it's just all these moving parts. You just sometimes feel like you might break something if you sit down. So it takes a while to mentally like find your groove again and not feel like you're constantly on edge, like you're gonna mess something up, if that makes sense. So yeah. But oh yeah, so I think so 8 weeks was the first time I went back into the gym and just did whatever I could, mostly with machines. This is also something I tend to be like the go-to coach for like post phalloplasty recovery, because I'm like, I've been there. I understand if you can't do something, I get it. But so mostly machines, because if you don't have full range of motion with your arm, you can't grip as well. Dumbbells are kind of harder. So I was just like, I'm gonna do whatever I can, machines, whatever. As long as I can get a pump, I'm gonna be happier than I was. So that was 8 weeks, and then 12 weeks I was able to, get back into most things. I wouldn't say normally, but I was able to do everything.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for sharing, because I think those are, I mean, those are questions I guess a lot of people would ask. I think for me, one of the things that I decided not to do any type of like surgery is that I was afraid of that long recovery time and the healing time, and then it might jeopardize my my bodybuilding career, whatever the career that is, right? And I think that always has been a constant fear of not like doing something. Maybe it would be beneficial to my to my mental, right? And so I think those are very helpful information, especially for those out there who are actually struggling between should I give up training at all, or should I do those surgeries that really gives me that sense of self, right? And so thank you so much for sharing. It must have been a really, really tough time, but you made it, and then you're gonna compete again, and we look forward to see. Are you going to post some pictures for us on Instagram later on after you compete?
For sure. Definitely.
Yes, yes, that we look forward to that, and we wish you all the best for your upcoming competition, and enjoy the stage, and keep competing, and also keep coaching, right? And keep bringing good athletes to us. Advertising time. Okay.
Basically, never stop working, Cody.
Yeah, but thank you so much for being here with us, like sharing your journey and giving us some coaching tips today. And so yeah, so just to reiterate, our bodybuilding competition and the powerlifting meet is going to be on the November 18th in Atlanta, Georgia. So whether you are as an audience, you can support us in various ways, right? Support us by being a member of IATBP, or you can be a competitor, or even come to show your support physically at our upcoming show in November 18th. We need every types of support, and so we wish to see you there. We wish to see you with us, competing with us, being with us, and be a member. Be a member with us. Yeah.
You got this.
Like vocabulary and also what is that? Prepositions.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Well, you've been studying and doing a lot of school recently. So every time Sifan calls me, he's like, I have an exam, or like, I'm reading my 4th book this week or something for school. So words are hard for you right now. It's okay.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Cody. And we wish to see you. Wish you success in every aspects of your life. And help us spread the word too about competition, about IATBP. And thank you all so much for being here, listening to our fireside chat. Our upcoming.
Oh, you muted yourself, I think.
Oh, sorry. Our upcoming fireside chat.
Yeah. So our next fireside chat is going to be with another former competitor. This time for powerlifting, competed with us way back in the day at our first powerlifting meet and won. And that's going to be Scott Percy. And he's currently categorized as like the strongest trans man in the world. So yeah, that's what his bio says anyway. I believe it because I haven't seen another trans guy lifting as much as he has yet on Instagram. But yeah, so he competed with us in our first powerlifting meet. And he's now also a coach. So we're going to get kind of the powerlifting perspective of this conversation we had today with Cody from the bodybuilding side. And that's going to be on Sunday, September 24th. So not this Sunday, but the following Sunday at, I believe, 2 p.m. Eastern is the time. And we're going to be posting about that this weekend first. So follow our Instagram for more details on that as well.
Yes, and Cody, can you tell us your Instagram again for those who are not following you yet?
Yeah. Which is at Mr. Coach Cody _ Scooby Prep. Yeah.
Yes,
Awesome.
and also follow IATBP if you're a fan of Cody and here, and follow my Instagram as well. So yes, thank you so much all. Have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, for all of you, and we'll see you later on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.